Hey there, it's Rachel Mullins, the host of #NoFilter Fridays on Public House Media.
Hi everybody, this is Baxter Colburn from Public House Media. From all of us here at PHM, we'd like to thank you for your support and wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
This is Keith Haney, host of Film Session with Haney and DeWitz here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media, and once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come and check out my show, Film Session, where we talk about movies, sports, Hollywood, the sports world, and how it all wraps up into one. A new show comes out every other Friday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Film Session with Haney and DeWitz. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy and you probably are too. This is Emily, and this week I am here with my good friend Melissa Brander, and we're here to talk nerdy to you.
Hi,
thanks, Melissa, for being on today. I appreciate that. It's really awesome to chat with you about something that we both love very, very much.
I know. When we were just talking about it before recording, it's obvious, like, we could fill like a whole episode, a whole podcast just about Firefly. There probably are podcasts just about Firefly.
There probably are. I think you're right. Like, there's so much to talk about, and like, it's such a short series because it's only one season of 14 episodes, but Firefly has so much packed into it because Joss Whedon is like amazing.
Yeah, so there's so much depth to it, and so much depth to all the characters.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's part of why I want to talk about it, because I have actually come across people that don't know what Firefly is, or if they've heard of it, they just haven't seen it. And so I want to kind of make a case for why you should watch Firefly, or maybe some things you didn't know about Firefly that might encourage you to watch it. But first, Melissa, I just want you to introduce yourself, say hi, tell us about your nerdiness, because that's what the show's about.
All right. Well, I'm Melissa. I always say that my original nerdiness is Harry Potter, but the truth is I was a nerd a long time before Harry Potter came around and before I read it. But Harry Potter is like my one true fandom, and that's like, if you had to take everything else away, that's what you would be left with. But when I was a kid, I did not learn how to ride my bike without training wheels until I was 10, because I would put a book on my handlebars and I would read the book while I was biking. But then we moved somewhere where there were no sidewalks, and that was not safe. So then I had to learn how to ride my bike like other normal kids my age. So as you can see, my nerdiness goes way back into my childhood, and I am so excited to be here today talking about Firefly, which is awesome.
That is awesome. Wow. Yeah, I would have to say probably my first official fandom was Harry Potter. I think so. But like you said, like, you know, the books are kind of a fandom too. So I was definitely into reading when I was younger. Maybe not quite to that extent, but I can understand the like needing to read all the time. So yeah, Harry Potter for sure, though. So let's talk more about Firefly, though. I mentioned earlier that it was written by Joss Whedon, who, as you may know, also wrote Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, and then also was, exactly. So yeah, Angel, spinoff of Buffy, The Avengers. And then he also helped with part of Justice League after the original, I don't forget if he was a director or writer or whatever, left Justice League, the movie that just came out like 2 weeks ago.
Sides.
I know, right? He did DC and Marvel. What in the world? But so he also like made the transition, and actually I thought he did a great job transitioning Justice League from taking basically somebody else's work and turning it into something contiguous that a viewer would enjoy. So he did a great job with Justice League. Also, way back in, I don't know, like 2008 or something like that, there was the writer's strike.
Oh, I don't remember that.
And during the writer's strike, he was bored, so he wrote Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog, which also included some actors one actor that was from Firefly that we'll talk about.
Yes, and it became very internet famous.
Yes, Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog is very internet famous.
You can even get it on DVD now.
You probably can. I have it on iTunes. There's 3 episodes that are, 15 minutes long? Something like that, 15, 20 minutes long. They're very short, and they're very fun, and they have songs, and I love them, and I sing them. It's wonderful.
That's the
we can
sing-along
talk
part.
about Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog another time. But anyways, Joss Whedon has a pretty good resume as far as nerdiness goes. And so he wrote Firefly. And I guess I'll just tell you guys how I got into it, which is going to be kind of a theme with how I got into different fandoms, because it started with my husband, Paul. He got into it through some of his friends in college, which one of them just so happened to be Melissa's husband. They went to college together for a couple years. And so my husband was like, hey, this show is pretty cool. You should probably watch it too. And I'm like, okay, I guess so. And so we watched it together, and I loved it right away. He showed it to me in the correct order right off the get-go, and we'll explain what that means later on too. But yeah, so Paul, I just have to give credit where credit is due, has been a huge influence in my nerdiness, because he has gotten me into a ton of different nerd fandoms, including Firefly. So that's my story on Firefly. How'd you get into it, Melissa?
Well, for me, it was sort of similar. My husband, Nick, friends of Paul, he was watching it. I don't know if they were watching it at the same time or not, but he was watching it, and he said, I think you'd like this. You should watch it. It's really cool. But all I kept seeing of it were these really weird snippets, like the episode where they're wearing bonnets and stuff like that. And so I was like, I don't know about this. Maybe you like it, and that's okay. But then like 6 months later, I was like, okay, it's like 14 episodes. It's on Netflix. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. I think they took it off. But
it's not on Netflix anymore. I believe it might be on Hulu, but it's not on Amazon Prime, and it's not on Netflix.
It used to be on Netflix back when I watched it. And so
yeah,
I'm like, okay,
same here.
I will watch it. And then I loved it. And then I'm like, okay, you were right. Eat my humble pie.
Right. Okay. I mean, hey, it's as long as you found something new to enjoy, humble pie is okay. Yeah, exactly. All right. So general description of the show then, if you have never heard anything about Firefly before, I would kind of call it a space western smuggler cowboy thing, because it basically happens like, I guess I can run over the brief, like, beginning dialogue that they say at the beginning of the show. Earth got used up, and so they terraformed a bunch of new Earths so that people could continue living. Mm-hmm. And so what actually ended up happening is that things kind of turned back into the wild, wild west, but with spaceships and smugglers, a little bit like what Han Solo does. He would smuggle things from planet to planet and try to stay under the radar. It's kind of what things are going on now. And there was a big war to set off this whole thing. So,
and I think
it's really great.
Well, like just like in real, when people moved and then there was New Frontier, the New Frontier wasn't policed as well as the mainland where as much people lived. And so it's kind of that same idea. They go to outer planets, and those planets are not as policed as well, of course, as the main set of planets, because people are only just settling them. So government and things like that haven't really been established. So that's how they kind of get away with this space pirating.
Yep. Lack of resources on the outer planets and things, and, lack of people out there, like you said, is basically exactly why there's not as much policing. So, I mean, that's kind of where the show is set. They, the pilot episode does a nice job of laying the groundwork for, like, why people are where they are. And as the show goes on throughout the whole 14 episodes, it really ties everything together, but also leaves a lot of questions because the show got canceled after one season, which is so upsetting to us.
I know. All of my shows that I love get canceled eventually. I mean, I suppose all TV shows get canceled eventually, but several TV shows I loved have gotten canceled prematurely, like Jericho. So
I have not heard of Jericho.
Well, I will tell you all about it later.
Okay, sounds good. But like I recently just finished up watching Stargate SG-1, all 10 seasons. I just finished finally on Tuesday, maybe. It took me 5 years to watch them, so I averaged about 2 seasons a year, not too bad.
Yeah.
But like, it was every season they were like preparing to get canceled at the end of each season, and then they're like, oh, guess what, the show's back on. And that did not happen with Firefly.
Yeah.
So
and I think
we'll talk
like
about that.
there's like two ways that things can go. They can either drag on so long that you're like, I wish they would have canceled this like 3 seasons ago when it was still good and you could remember it good.
Yeah.
Or they cancel it way too early and you're like, there was still so much that you could have done. Like very rarely do they hit that sweet spot of like
I know.
just
And
enough.
I know. That's what happened with Stargate, though, and I loved it. It was so fantastic. I can spend a whole nother episode talking about all the Stargate stuff, which I'll actually mention more Stargate later because there's some crossover actresses. But let's get into maybe a couple of tidbits about the show Firefly. It was actually inspired by a book called The Killer Angels, and the book was about a civil war that was happening. And so Joss Whedon basically took what happened in The Killer Angels and turned it into, something very his own. But
yeah, I never knew that before. We were just
basis.
talking about it, and I think now I'm going to have to read that.
Yeah, I know. I'm interested. And so if any of you have actually read The Killer Angels, you might actually find more connection to the show than the rest of us, because I've never heard of that book until I was just looking up things for this episode. So that's pretty cool. So that's what inspired the series. If you look carefully, though, there are Star Wars references spotted throughout the 14 episodes, including some Star Wars spaceships and also a small little, I guess you could say, replica of Han Solo in Frozen Carbonite. So there's a couple of tidbits in there. If you keep your eyes peeled, you can find Star Wars references hidden throughout. Joss Whedon loves Star Wars, so he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw this in there because this is my show. I'm like, that's cool. Good for you.
I know. I'm like, Star Wars is not my thing. I have nothing to contribite about all the Star Wars references.
That is
That's
fine.
Like a completely different language.
Yeah, that's okay. You know Danny Domer as well, he was on our episode from last week, and he is like, he lives and breathes Star Wars, so he'll be our Star Wars liaison
for all of us.
Exactly. But yeah. So I pulled a couple of these tidbits from Mental Floss. They have an article on like 20 fun facts about Firefly. One of those was that Neil Patrick Harris also auditioned for one of the roles, and he could have been in it, but was cast by a different person instead. So Neil Patrick Harris could have been in there. He was also in Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog with Nathan Fillion, who played the main character in Firefly, Captain Malcolm Reynolds.
Yes.
So that would have been an interesting interplay, but they did Dr. Horrible after Firefly, so they probably already knew each other beforehand, I'm assuming.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah. I love this tidbit.
Well,
this is fantastic.
Canadian, aren't they? Aren't they both Canadian?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure Nathan Fillion is, but I don't know about Neil Patrick Harris. I don't know. Someone tell us. Tell us. Let us know if Neil Patrick Harris is if he's Canadian or not. He might be. Okay, this tidbit though that's coming up is fantastic, Canadian. And I really enjoy it.
I looked it up. I googled it just now. He's not Canadian.
Okay, now we know. Okay, this tidbit though I think is fantastic, and I noticed it right away the first time I saw him. Zac Efron's debut in acting was on Firefly as a child, so like he was, I don't know, 10 maybe, and he was on Firefly.
But don't worry, Firefly
I
is
recognized
better.
him right away.
Firefly is better than High School Musical, so don't let Zac Efron.
He doesn't sing at all.
Discourage you from watching Firefly.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you love High School Musical, that's great. Zac Efron doesn't sing in Firefly though, and he's in maybe 2 episodes, something like that, 1 or 2. Yeah, it's a backstory shot. So, anywho, that was his debut though, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then this is interesting. So, what the writers did with Joss Whedon is the characters used Chinese to swear instead of speaking in English, because the culture in Firefly is basically a combination of the United States and China. Basically the 2 biggest world powers converged and became
The Alliance.
the new society. Exactly. Became what's called the Alliance in Firefly. And so their language is actually a big mixture of a lot of English and a little bit of Chinese here and there. So when they swear in Chinese, and that's how they got it under the radar for like rating, you know, like the what do you call that?
TV rating?
Parental ratings or something like that. Yeah. So they didn't have to have like they didn't have to change what people would have said. They just said it in a different language and it was fine. So I don't know if they have Firefly in Chinese and they changed that to English.
Oh, that would be funny if they did. I don't know. That's a good question.
That would be hilarious. I have no idea. Maybe we'll have to do some more digging on that. But yeah, so that's a kind of like snapshot of Firefly. So that's like, yeah, general description of the show. Now, I want to tell you guys about the actors and actresses that were key players in this show, because you've probably heard of a lot of them now in completely different roles. We already mentioned Nathan Fillion. He's Captain Mal Reynolds. They call him Mal, but Malcolm is his full name. He was Castle in Castle, of course. But he was also in Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog, and he played Captain Hammer. And Dr. Horrible was also written by Joss Whedon as well. But yeah, Nathan Fillion's most recent acting role was in Castle. And so you've probably heard of him from that. And then there's Gina Torres. She played basically the second in command on the spaceship, which is called Serenity. It's a Firefly class spaceship, I should mention. That's why it's called Firefly, is because it's the class of spaceship that they're using. And the name of the ship is Serenity. And Gina Torres plays second in command. Right now, she is playing somebody that she is a fantastic actress. She is on the show Suits. And she plays Jessica Pearson. She is the most epic lawyer ever in that show. So I love her. But her name is Zoe Washburn. She is married in Firefly. She's Zoe Washburn. And she's married to the pilot of Serenity, who is played by Alan Tudyk. And you've probably heard of Alan Tudyk from miscellaneous Disney voices. He was also K2SO in Rogue One. But in Firefly, he is Hodan Washburn.
I never knew
so they
that
call him
he had
Wash.
Actual first
I didn't know he
name.
had a first name either, but apparently his first name in Firefly is Hodan. They call him Wash. Nobody ever calls him anything else.
Go by Wash also.
Yeah, I would definitely go by a nickname. And Wash is a great nickname for Washburn that works out nicely. And so Gina Torres and Alan Tudyk play a married couple in the show. Doesn't give any spoilers away, I promise, because it's very obvious in the first episode. So we're good there.
And it's not like they get married during the show. They're already married by the time.
Yeah, exactly. They're already married during the first episode. They've been married. So yeah. And actually, Alan Tudyk also did his own indie mini series that was kind of like a self-starter mini series called Con Man, and it's hilarious. You should look it up because it also uses the background of what happened to him after he was done with Firefly and his life afterward. It's hilarious. So you should look it up, you guys. Just take a peek. Con Man. It's not a guy trying to swindle people. It's con man as in convention man, Comic Con man. So that makes it even better. Just you have to check it out. Probably watch Firefly first, and then Con Man is even more hilarious. It's fantastic. Because otherwise Con Man kind of doesn't make sense. But I mean it does, but having the Firefly background helps it. Anyways, next is an actress named Marina Baccarin. She played Inara Sarah on the ship, and her role is obvious in the first episode as well, but I'm not going to get into that right now. What I do want to mention is that she is Deadpool's girlfriend, Vanessa.
What?
In Deadpool 1 and 2, yeah.
That. Oh, no, wait, maybe I did know that. Maybe I did.
And her hair is completely different. Her hair is super short when they first meet in Deadpool, and then it gets longer.
Yeah, but I've never actually seen Deadpool, but I've heard parts of it, and I feel like I recognized her voice when I heard it.
You might have. Yeah. Yeah, you might have. And then Miranda Baccarin is also in Stargate SG-1 for a few episodes in the last season, which I just finished watching, and she did a fantastic job in that as well. That was maybe a few years after Firefly had finished. So she was in Stargate SG-1 in the 10th season. And she is recently, she's currently doing Deadpool 2, but she was also in Deadpool 1 as well. And she has been in other things as guest stars in various episodes of other stuff, and she's done voiceover acting and things too. Next up, I have Jewel State, who played Kaylee on the show Firefly. She was the ship's mechanic, and she's basically like awesome. She knows how to fix anything, and if she doesn't, she makes it work until they can. But she also played a role on Stargate Atlantis and other miscellaneous roles in sci-fi as well. So that's cool. I'm also watching Stargate Atlantis right now. And I have yet to meet her character, Dr. Jennifer Keller, in Stargate Atlantis. But I'm getting there really soon, I have a feeling. So I'm excited for that because she's a really good actress as well.
All of these actors and actresses are phenomenal.
They are.
Like,
and that's why
picked the better cast.
I know, it's why they all worked so well together on Firefly, and it's also why a lot of them went on to do really awesome stuff afterward too. It's awesome. Like the next guy, Adam Baldwin, he played a guy called Jane Cobb on the show Firefly, which is hilarious because his name is Jane, which is typically a woman's name, but the character that he plays is just hilarious. He plays kind of like the dumb gun guy, like the muscle on the show. But it's hilarious because he has his own episode basically, and it's fantastic. I love it. But he was, it's so good. But Adam Baldwin afterward played John Casey on the show Chuck. And that one is fantastic too. A similar yet completely different character. Because he played not necessarily a dumb gun, but he played like a really macho guy. In Chuck, but he was an NSA agent in Chuck. So he was a well-trained agent in that show. Summer Glau played River Tam in Firefly, and she was most recently she did a couple like guest spots in Arrow. She played Isabel Rochev in the show Arrow that's on Netflix, about Green Arrow. She was also in a series called Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and she played Cameron Phillips in that, which I haven't seen, but Terminator, I figure people are nerdy and like Terminator enough, they'll probably find it. I've seen her in miscellaneous places all around, and she's a really fantastic actress too. So
yeah, it's amazing how many of these actresses and actors are in like just like one-off here or there for shows, and I'll be like, oh, I recognize them, and then I'll be like, oh, there's the Firefly.
I know. The last one, the one that I've saved for last, I didn't save him for last on purpose necessarily, but I think the most people are going to be like, what? He's in that? So we'll get to that. But yeah, a lot of these actors and actresses, just like, you'll notice them in places. All right. So Sean Maher or Mayer, I'm not sure how you would say his last name. I'm going to say Maher because I used to have a student with this last name, and he was Maher. He played Simon Tam, which is the role that Neil Patrick Harris auditioned for as well. He hasn't done a whole lot. He's done some miscellaneous guest spots here and there, but he played Shrapnel in the show Arrow for a couple of episodes. Ron Glass played the character Shepherd Daryl Book, so he was kind of like a missionary pastor.
Yeah, don't get confused and think he has anything to do with sheep. It's nothing to do with sheep.
No, he has nothing to do with actual sheep.
He's like a religious guy.
He's kind of, he's a religious missionary guy. But he has a really, really interesting backstory that nobody knows much of anything about.
Yeah, because you have to read the comic books.
I guess I will. Yeah, we'll have to look into that because, the story's continued after. But so Ron Glass did some other miscellaneous work as well, kind of like, voiceovers and guest acting spots and things. But he actually passed away last year in 2016. So he's not around anymore, which is very sad because he, again, was just an excellent actor.
He had such a presence on the show. I feel like all of the actors and actresses had their own presence, but none of their presence detracted from any of the other characters. And that's really hard to do.
Yeah, totally. Like they just had such good chemistry as a cast. Like I don't know how Joss Whedon did it. It's amazing, but they did a fantastic job casting this. Really, really did. I also know that there was a different woman that was cast to play Inara Sarah, which was Morena Baccarin's part, but the woman that was originally cast did not work with the other people in the cast. So 2 days later they cast Morena and she started filming that day.
Yeah. Well, that was the right
And
choice because she did an excellent job with it.
She totally did. She was perfect. I can't imagine anybody else playing her role. She did a fantastic job with that. All right, so these last two characters are more side characters, but you might recognize them from other things. Christina Hendricks played a character named Saffron, and she's in a couple of different episodes. But you might know her from Mad Men. She played Joan Harris or Joan Holloway. I'm not sure why there's two different last names because I actually haven't watched all of Mad Men.
Maybe she got married.
I'm thinking she probably did get married.
I haven't seen Mad Men either, so that's not spoilers. That's a guess.
I'm guessing she did get married during the show. So Joan Harris / Holloway, that's Christina Hendricks. Also, I figure I should mention this one because I also mentioned Ellen Tudyk's Disney voices. She played the voice of a fairy in a Tinkerbell movie, The Pirate Fairy. She was the Pirate Fairy Zarina in the Tinkerbell movie. So the Pirate Fairy, her name is Zarina. So that's a fun little tidbit too. All right, last but not least, this guy I have seen in so many different shows, and he's always a really fantastic actor in all of them. Mark Sheppard. Just me saying his name, you probably already know him, but if you don't, he is again a side character named Badger in Firefly, but he's also in the show Leverage, played Jim Sterling. He was kind of a rival to the main character in that show. He was also in White Collar. He played a character named Curtis Hagen. And he was in Warehouse 13. He played Benedict Valda. And in Supernatural as Crowley, which is where a lot of you probably know him from. I don't watch Supernatural because it's just not my thing, but that's him. So
watch some Supernatural, but not enough to get to his character.
Yeah, he comes in a lot later. He's more of a recent character from what I understand.
Yes. I watched the beginning.
I mean, he was doing other stuff, so they got him in.
He's a busy guy.
He's a busy guy. I see him like all over in random things too. I'm like, he's in that? Where in the world did he come from?
He has a time turner in his back pocket.
Yes, he must have a time turner. He must have talked to Dumbledore about that and figured that out. But anywho, those are just a few of my favorite ones. The main cast is like the first 7 of them, or 8. I don't remember. Yeah, 8. And then the last few are just some spare. I'm not spare, but they're more peripheral characters.
They're not a part of the crew on the ship. Everyone else lives on the ship. The entire show. Yes, mostly the entire.
Yes, I mean, so Mal Reynolds, Zoe, Wash, Inara, Kaylee, Jane, they all like basically live on the ship. And then River, Simon, Shepherd, those 3 are guests, passengers on the ship. They're not permanent members of the ship.
But they're basically passengers on the ship the entire time.
Yeah, so they live there the entire season because that's what they're doing. And then Saffron and Badger live on different planets throughout the show. And they kind of come in sporadically as their characters are in the plot line. So
Saffron briefly lives on the ship.
Yeah, briefly. Real quick minute there. Yeah. But the show was originally aired on Fox. And you might be wondering, why only 14 episodes? Why did the show not continue? Well, there's a few reasons why. First of all, there was a second season that was starting to be written and filming had begun on that second season. But Fox messed up, basically. I had on Business Insider, Fox messed up Firefly. And what they did is they aired episodes out of order. They didn't like the way Joss Whedon actually wrote some of the characters. They said that Zoe Washburn and Washburn shouldn't be married. because Fox wanted the romance to be between Zoe and Malcolm Reynolds, the captain, instead of between the pilot and the second in command. So they didn't like that she was married to the pilot instead of having a thing with the captain.
Yeah, which I think that totally would have completely changed the dynamics of the show. Not just obviously in the relationship aspects, but I think like it would have been very easy to make this like a show about Captain Reynolds and all of the people on his crew, but instead of that, it's this show about this diverse group of people, and they all have their own internal motivations and their internal goals, and that is like, it's not about just Captain Reynolds' agendas. Like, they all have their own agendas, and I think like changing the relationship dynamic would have changed that completely.
Yeah, exactly. You're totally right. Because it's not just Malcolm Reynolds and his other friends that he has.
Right.
It's like there's stories behind each individual character. Joss Whedon wrote Firefly with originally 5 key characters, but expanded the key characters to include 9, which would also be the 4 other characters that I mentioned that don't actually like live on the ship, but they're there in the only season that we have, because he wanted that interplay to be there. He wanted that diversity. Another thing, Fox advertised Firefly in a really weird way. So we told you that Firefly is like a space western, basically. You could also maybe call it a gritty sci-fi show or something like that. But they said it's the most twisted new show on television. It includes a flighty pilot, a space cowboy, and a cosmic hooker. And a girl in a box.
Calling her a cosmic hooker just like cheapens her.
Oh, it totally cheapens her. That is not at all what she is. Like, so that's referring to Inara, which was Marina Baccarin's character. Not completely a different tone, entirely different tone. So, yeah, I mean, flighty pilot makes it sound like Wash doesn't know how to fly his own ship.
Right.
But he knows how to better than anybody else in like the whole universe.
Exactly.
Pretty sure. Yeah, and then Girl in a Box, that was for like 1 episode, and then she wasn't in a box anymore.
Imagine if she had just been in the whole box the entire show. That'd have...
Yeah, she's just in a box the whole time, and that's her character. No, not at all. Also, Fox didn't air the pilot episode as the pilot. They aired a different episode because they wanted more action to be happening. They didn't care about laying the groundwork for the show so that the viewers would understand the plot line and where these characters came from and why they're all on a ship together. They just wanted something actiony and catchy and cowboy-y. So they literally wrote The Train Job, the second episode that is listed in the proper order. They literally wrote that episode because Fox didn't like the original pilot episode.
It's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, if they would have just let it stand on its own for what it was, instead of trying to make it something that it wasn't, it could have gone places, I think.
Exactly. No, exactly. So basically when Joss Whedon found out that Fox canceled the show, I have this quote from Adam Baldwin who said, "He looked at me and said, 'I don't have good news. They pulled a plug and this is the last episode. And I want you all to know immediately.'" Like, he didn't sugarcoat it at all. Whedon was mad because this was like his baby. And like, if you watch the show, you'll understand that he had big plans for Firefly.
Yeah, I mean, you
like,
think about
so much
what it could have been. And I mean, there is a movie, they did like come back to it in that, and the movie is good and it's worth watching, but it could have been more.
Yeah, exactly. Another couple things that I found on Looper, the real reason why Firefly got canceled. Fox was expecting another show that would be along the lines of Buffy or Angel, where they would have like a chosen one and things would kind of follow the chosen one and something like that, which Firefly doesn't exactly do that. Like you said, Melissa, it's about a diverse group of people all with their own agendas. And so it's not about one thing or one person. It's about a lot of different things.
Yeah, and I think
They
in the
also
difference
oh yeah.
between Buffy too is in like Buffy they have like a overall arching mission, which is to fight the vampires and other I'm blanking on the word I want, but other like threats to humanity that are supernatural, but they don't have that same sort of overarching mission in Firefly. They are just there
Yeah.
flying their ship, doing the jobs that need to be done when the jobs need to be done. And so it's
Exactly.
different
Yep.
dynamic.
Totally different. I mean, it's a different show, so of course it should have a different dynamic. And Fox was like, "Well, it should be like Buffy or Angel." Okay, whatever, Fox.
I mean, they just,
too
I'm
bad for
sure
you.
Buffy, I mean, they got 2 shows out of that, and I'm sure it brought them a lot of money. So that's what they're
Yeah.
looking for in Firefly is to also bring them in more money. But I mean, they could have had that. It could have brought them in more money. Look at how many people are. I mean, I didn't discover it until like, what? It originally aired in like the early 2000s, right? I don't think I
It was 2002.
Yeah, I didn't discover it until over 10 years after it aired and fell in love with it then. So like it really could have been those things for Fox if they were willing to take the risk on it and let it be unconventional.
Yeah,
Because people discover it and love it every day.
I know, exactly. If they just would have let Joss Whedon do his thing and trust him with his own show, they would have been fantastic. And it might still be a running show now.
Yeah.
But they decided to try and make it what they wanted it to be. And then they're like, oh, never mind. That season didn't work out.
Well,
so,
it didn't work out because
the time they aired it at was just really stupid, too. They aired it late on Friday nights, which was also known as the death slot for shows.
I heard that's when
basically any show that got aired then was like, okay, the show isn't going to last.
Yeah, I heard that if you're ever watching a show on TV and it gets moved to that time slot, that's probably the last season that you'll ever see it.
I mean, that's probably a helpful indicator, but still, airing on a new night. No, not Friday.
Or Sunday night, then it always gets pushed back for football.
Oh, yeah. That's annoying. Yeah, it just really is. But like you mentioned, Melissa, there is a movie called Serenity that kind of wraps up the storyline of it. So the movie Serenity is not to be watched before the series Firefly.
Don't watch it before.
Watch it after.
Just absolutely not.
Don't watch it.
Don't watch it.
Yeah, do not, because it will ruin all the things.
Yes.
All the things. And you'll probably be confused about a lot of stuff that's going on. So don't watch the movie Serenity before you watch Firefly. Make sure you watch Firefly first.
Yes, because there's a lot of backstory about the characters in Firefly that they don't get into in the movie. And you see how they all came to be and stuff like that. So...
Yeah, and like, how could they get into all that background in the movie? Because it's a movie. It's not a series that takes its time, you know? You can't really do that in a movie. But, Joss Whedon did his best to tie off any loose ends, which is a really, really helpful thing, because I think he did a really great job with Serenity. And it, like you said, it's totally worth watching,
It does give you a little bit of closure after it having been canceled.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't totally make up for the fact, but at least, like, there's some closure. Sort of. There's sort of some closure.
Exactly.
And it has a really nice plot line.
Yeah, totally. I think it just kind of puts a little bow on it. Not like a super fantastic bow that, another 4 or 10 seasons would have done, but it still did a really nice job. So there's the movie. Melissa also mentioned that there's some comic books that kind of do a continuation of After Serenity, I believe. No, like after the fact.
Yes, After Serenity. They pick up after Serenity, after the movie, and you see some things. And of course, it's not the same as watching a TV show or watching a movie. But if you need more, if you just like blow through all 14 episodes and the movie, which you could do conceivably in a week or less, because let's be real, if you're binge watching and you watch like 6 episodes in a row, that's half of it gone already. So
I mean, yeah,
not that I've ever watched 6 episodes in a row of anything, right? Wink.
Right, I know. But yeah, exactly. You could conceivably do it within a week, maybe 2 if you're taking your time.
Favor them, because you'll never get to watch them again for the first time.
Exactly. Yeah. Like savor them. You should. I highly recommend savoring them. But like, if you end up being in a show hole after Firefly, maybe the comic books are a good way to kind of fill that hole. It could be.
Yes,
because like, I don't know what.
There is some more backstory on Shepherd Book in the comic books that you don't really get to see in the show, and he's such an intriguing character that it is worth reading for that backstory, because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I would definitely say so, because you don't know a lot about Shepherd Book. You just know that he's basically the Bible man, and other than that, you don't know much about him until you see him do some stuff and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And so you want to like know more about him after that too.
He's not your ordinary Bible man.
No, exactly. But yeah. Also, apparently there are a few books that Joss Whedon wrote that are kind of like character backstory companion books to kind of help viewers or fans or whatever with the backstory behind different characters. So if you're interested in different characters as well after watching Firefly and Serenity, check out the books by Joss Whedon. I don't have a good suggested way to look those up. I would just say Joss Whedon Firefly books. That's what I looked up, and I found some. So I don't know if they all have like a series title or something like that, but they're all related to Firefly. Now, I find this extremely important to mention to all of you. If you have never watched Firefly before and are planning to watch it, this is extremely important. You need to watch the episodes in the correct order, because Fox aired them in a terrible order. And if you look on, this is fireflywikia.com, I have a list of episodes in the correct order that they were intended to be aired in, and Fox aired them in a completely different order, and you can see the actual air dates listed there as well on this website, in the Firefly Wikia.
The regular,
and so I'm going to tell you,
the regular Wikipedia also on their Firefly article has them in the correct order.
That's great. And so it should probably say air dates on there as well. But the titles of these episodes are more important than the number. So the first episode, the pilot episode that was written that Fox didn't want to air first, is called Serenity. So please don't get that confused with the actual movie called Serenity. Serenity was the very first episode of Firefly as well. And they aired that one 2 months after the show had actually started, which is dumb. I'm sorry, that's dumb.
Yes,
that's the pilot. You air the pilot first, guys.
I know. Or
do that.
If they wanted more action, they could have just aired the pilot and then the train job immediately following it for
exactly.
I don't know.
It's not an unheard of thing to do a double episode on the pilot
shows. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So Serenity's first. Next is the train job, which is the one they did air first, which has some more action. It's kind of like a cowboy train job hold up sort of thing where they were trying to get something off a train to steal, whatever. So that's what they aired first. Next is Bushwhacked. I like that one too. It's just, first of all, it's a funny name. Second of all, there's some fun like quotes in that one too.
There's fun
Shindig,
quotes in every episode.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. There are. And honestly, I tried to decide on like my favorite episode and I just can't because they're all so good.
They are all so good.
Yeah.
I mean,
so Bushwhacked is third. Yeah. I think we all do. There's one that just holds a special place in our hearts, but it's so hard to pick. Bushwhacked is third. Next is Shindig. After that should be Safe. So then this is the 6th episode, Our Mrs. Reynolds. Then Janestown.
This is my favorite.
I love Janestown. It's hilariously great. Out of Gas is next. Out of Gas is a great episode for backstory on all the characters. Once you get there, don't watch it out of order. But backstory is coming. That's the 8th one you should watch. Ariel is next. War Stories. Trash. The Message. Heart of Gold. And Objects in Space.
And then you can watch the movie.
Order. And then you can watch the movie, which is also called Serenity. Make sure when you're looking things up, be sure you know which one's the movie and which one's the episode. Yeah. And apparently The Message was the episode that was filmed last. And so like the crew found out that the show was canceled while they were filming The Message. And so there's a scene in the message that like they filmed it right after Joss Whedon announced that the show got canceled, and it's super emotional when you know that scene happens.
Yeah.
So that one's good. But that's the 12th episode, the message. And then there's Heart of Gold and then Objects in Space. So make sure you watch it in that order, guys. That's really all we've got time for. And like Melissa and I said earlier, like we could talk so much more about Firefly. We really, really could, but you need to watch it first. So I don't know if all of you have seen it, but I will do another episode with Firefly in it.
Let's do another episode where we talk spoilers, so I can say all the things I'm holding back. I know.
It's been so hard. So I usually am terrible about mentioning spoilers, so I'm really proud of myself for not mentioning spoilers this time.
It's really hard not to, but it's really a show that was one of a kind, and we do have many wonderful sci-fi shows now, but there's just something about this. It's not just another episodic show. It really is an overarching story. It's not. I mean, it is kind of a little episodic because they do jobs and go on those different kinds of things, but it's not like, there's a murder, solve the murder, end of the murder, which I mean, I love those shows. Bones is one of my favorite
those are
shows
great too, but
this show is just it's much more storytelling focused than a lot of shows are. And it's it's good. I don't know what else I can say about it without telling you spoilers.
There is one huge overarching storyline throughout the whole thing, even into the movie Serenity. But then, like you said, Melissa, in between, there's also like the jobs and the personal interactions between the characters that happen in all the episodes too. So like you can watch an episode and not feel this super strong urge to continue to the next one unless you watch certain episodes. Then some of them definitely lead right into the following one. But like you can watch an episode and feel completed because there's an episode and you watched it and it's done. But there is a huge overarching train of thought, I guess you could say.
Now I have to go and watch it all again. I mean, we didn't even talk about the bad guys. Oh, I just have to go watch it.
I know. That should be like another episode all about the bad guys of Firefly.
I know.
Because there's a lot of them, actually.
There are a lot of them. Well, I was thinking of the Reavers.
Yeah.
Which I can't talk about because it's way too much spoilers, but
yeah, spoilers. We can't talk about that. But now you guys have a reason to go watch all of it because then we can talk about those. So, yeah. But if you have seen Firefly, what do you think of it? Tell us on our Facebook page. I'd love to see how many of you guys have actually seen Firefly. And if you haven't, tell me that too. And maybe tell me why you haven't. Maybe you've never heard of it before. I don't know. But tell us on the Facebook page, beauties-headcanons, or you can also tweet us on Twitter, beauties_canons. We also have a Tumblr, beauties and headcanons, all one word, no symbols, just all letters. Next week, you can tune in for a new episode. Every Friday, I have a new episode coming out here. Subscribe on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and iTunes. And also now Tune In. That's a new one that we just got approved on this week, which is super exciting. We'd love also a review and a rating so we can see how we're doing and make sure that the episodes are reaching the listeners in the best way possible. A huge thank you to Public House Media for making this show possible. You can go ahead and check them out on Facebook, on Twitter at The PH Media, or on their website at thephmedia.com to stay up to date on this podcast and the network, which is always growing. I'm Emily, and we've had Melissa with us. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for getting nerdy with us on Beauties and Headcanons.